Hey everyone, this is Jason from Tabletop and Beyond. Today we're going to review one of my favorite co-op games, Escape the Dark Sector. We'll cover components, mechanics, gameplay, and give it a score. So stick around and let's dive in. Let's talk about the box. This box has a really nice feel, like it's really going to be able to hold up, really quality material. The art has that 70s to 80s sci-fi aesthetic. I really love it. It's all hand-drawn. You can really tell that the game designers felt passionately about the theme and making it consistent throughout, and it is consistent throughout all of the cards and components. The other thing about this box is you can trust the claims that are on it, and the setup time, 2 minutes, 45 minutes play, that is true. I've tested it many times. It's believable. The rulebook. This can be such an important part of any game. In some situations, you don't even need a rulebook. In some games, though, it can add a certain amount of complexity to try to just understand the game right out the door. This rulebook starts by showing that consistent theme with a little bit of lore to really set the mood. Then it goes into all the components as you would typically understand and show in most games. The next part that I really like is it shows you how to lay out the board in front of you for how you're going to play. This game can have a mat and it can't have a mat. It just depends on how you want to put it on the table in front of you. And sometimes we change it, sometimes we don't, but it gives you a good starting point. It also shows you the individual character cards and how you can set up your player base down in front of you when you're playing, and the easiest way to maintain that. I felt like it was really easy to understand, even though it seemed a little complex at first. The material is really high quality, and it's not going to tear if your little kids get a hold of it. Well, any kid might be able to tear it if they really want to. Kids can do anything these days. But anyways, I think that this rulebook really helps as a reference. I'll say that it took me about 20 minutes when I first got the game to learn how to play it by reading the book, and then I rarely ever pick the book out except to get that one little clarifying question or comment that another player that maybe has played it for the first time has. It's something you can come back to, it's something you can reference later, but you don't have to read it every time you want to play the game. I would say that I really think that they did a good job kind of summarizing the main things you have to do to play the game. But then again, the game really is not that complex to begin with. Even at the end, you've got this really feel of, gosh, I really know what this game is about. I know what the setting feels like. And then, of course, a tribute to the game that came before, Escape the Dark Castle. This rulebook is something that is easy to store. It doesn't take up a lot of time to read unless you want to. And it really gives you some more feel to the art if you're kind of geeking out over the theme itself. I would suggest most people are going to scan it once or twice, see videos on YouTube like this one, and not even have to use the rulebook when they play. And that's okay. But if you want it, it's there, and it'll help you and guide you along the way. The organizer and dice. This box has an organizer like a lot of games. One thing I like about this one is that there's a place for everything. It's not like in some games where you're like, oh, when I'm trying to put it back in, I can't remember where this goes. And I'm just going to screw it. I'm just going to dump it all in. Because even in this box, if you dump everything back in, it's going to fall into its place that it belongs in. However, sometimes getting that dice out at the bottom can be hard. So that's why I gave it to Justin, so that he can worry about that while I talk about the rest of it. These dice, the black ones are called the chapter dice. The white ones below we'll talk about a little bit later. Those are the character dice. These chapter dice contain the three main stats of the game, might, cunning, and wisdom, and we'll get into those a little bit later too. These dice will either be the bane or the fun of the game for you. They are what set the difficulty levels of the challenges you have to overcome and the monsters you got to fight. Player cards. Now let's bring up those white dice. These are the player dice, or the character dice, if you will. Every person who plays is going to get to choose a character. These cards are really big and they're fun to hold and put in front of you. And the drawings are very consistent. They've each got their own little stat, which we'll show. We'll zoom in up a little bit. Apologize for the camera a little fuzzy, but you can see those three bars. There you've got the might, which is the fist, the wisdom, which is the star, and in the middle is cunning. This guy, Lieutenant Abbott, is not very good at cunning, but he's pretty good at might and wisdom right there. You'll notice his dice has a focus on might and wisdom. He's got a lot of wisdom. He's only got one cunning on that dice because he's not very good at it. Right? All of the different players have their own balance of those three skills. So when you're playing the game with friends, I would say make sure you get a good balance. Like here you can see Lieutenant Miller is really good at cunning. He's going to have a lot more cunning on his dice. but he's going to have a lot less wisdom. In fact, he'll probably only have one face on that wisdom dice. There, yep, there it is right there. So make sure you have a balance. Intro, story, or chapter cards. When you start the game, you're going to randomly select one of these 3 intro cards that has some flavor text on it that's really true to the aesthetic of the game. Some of them are harder to start with than others. You don't know which one you're going to get, but they all center around the theme of you being trapped away from your ship deep down inside the dark sector, and you're going to have to fight your way out to get back to your ship to escape. Chapter cards. These are what are used to build the sci-fi dungeon of the game. The combination of these cards makes the game different every time you play it. There are 3 different levels denoted by the dots inside the radar. Those are level 2s right on the top there. There's also a boss door, which we'll see in just a minute as I dig through the back of this deck. There's the 2s, the 3s, there they are. So these bosses, I think there's about 5 or 6 in the base game. They have different challenging creatures you have to accomplish to get to your ship. Alright, the base game says you put 4 of each card in there. Sometimes I like to put 3 if I need to make the game easier or shorter for my younger kids. You start with the boss, add your level 3 cards, add your level 2 cards, your level 1, there we go, and then pick a random intro card. Now your path through the sector is established for this playthrough. Cybernetic Implants. Before you start the game, you have your characters in front of you with their character dice on their card. You get to pick one more little perk to help you through the dungeon. These are called Cybernetic Implants. They give you special stats or bonuses. If you look at your character, we'll move the dice here in just a second. There we go. Right about there. There is a little chip slot. That represents where these get installed. These things help you in things like combat to reroll dice, or maybe when you're trying to overcome challenges, you can turn the dice to a specific face value to try to increase your chances of a successful outcome of that scenario. These are really fun for modifying your character every time you play and trying new techniques and new combinations. Once you've got those, you're ready to start playing the game. Items. Items are super critical for helping you to have the strength and the power to move into later chapter cards. You get them as loot by defeating monsters or completing challenges on each chapter card. You can get things like guns, chronobombs, stim packs that help you reroll dice, or change dice to the face values that you need, or just do fun things to help you be a little bit more powerful. You have 4 slots in portrait mode next to your character that you can use, okay? Sometimes, though, you're going to find, as you saw the gun that I'm holding in my hand there, are in landscape mode. 1 landscape card takes up 2 of the portrait slots. So if I need to carry that gun, I got to get rid of 2 of those cards. So you're going to have to balance what you take with you. Weapons. Alright, this is the fun part, right? This is when we actually get to fire and do things against the monsters that are before us. There are really 2 types. There's single-handed weapons and double-handed, as you can see right there. Single-handed come into pistols, and the double-handed are the landscape mode big ones. The big guns do massive damage, but you can only shoot one of them on a round, whereas you can always shoot 2 pistols because you do have 2 hands. Deciding which weapon to use is going to depend on the monster you're going against, because they have resistances to different damage types. Where I'm pointing on the card tells you what type of damage type it is. This ray gun uses lightning damage. This pistol uses kinetic. And the pulse rifle up top is also an energy or lightning damage. If we zoom in a little bit, we can see on the right side of the card shows you the firing rate. Okay, so these pistols typically have 1 dice. They fire 1 bullet. However, the big weapons can do usually combinations. Sometimes if there's a slash, it denotes you can do single, or you can do double and whiff, just like I did. What a bad roll. Setting the enemy difficulty. This is one cool thing about this game. These icons right here at the bottom of each card show you how many chapter dice are going to be the difficulty of that card or that enemy. In this case, there's a turret, you can see in the awesome art of the card. It had 2 fists and 1 wisdom, 2 mights and 1 wisdom. So we're going to start by putting 2 might chapter dice, 1 wisdom dice. Now that little person icon at the end means however many number of players, each one of them are going to roll a dice, and that's going to add to the difficulty. There's 3 of us playing, so we're all going to roll a dice, and that's going to add. What's cool is this makes the game scale based on the number of players. To be fair though, when I play the game solo, I still play with 3 characters. I just run them myself, so I'm still rolling 3 dice. You can do up to 4. Close combat. The goal is to knock off these chapter dice from the baddies. In close combat, you roll your character dice, and the value that matches knocks it off. So that's a cunning, so I would normally remove the cunning, right? You can only move 1 per dice. Let's move a few just so that we can make another point here, though. Let's say that I rolled a wisdom. There are no wisdom up there. I wouldn't remove any dice at all. On that dice is also a shield. If you get a shield on that dice, that means you can block their combat dice. If you don't, you're always going to take a hit from them. Ranged combat. Okay, this one's fun. We're going to put a guy up here so we can see and give him this pulse rifle. Now in ranged combat, and just like close combat, everything happens simultaneously, which means they're going to shoot at you just as you shoot at them. And that's represented by one of these black dice called the hit dice. You're going to roll however many you want to shoot with, bullets, and the hit dice. In this case, they didn't hit me at all because they got a blank, but I hit them twice. You're going to look up here in this little section. It shows you the resistances and the vulnerabilities. In this case, it's hard to see, but the lightning bolt has a 2 next to it. That means that for every lightning bolt I get, I can take 2 dice away. The beauty of ranged combat is you can pick which of those stat dice you want to get. It doesn't matter about the match. So I can get myself ready for what I'm going to do at close combat. Now, if I had rolled that little icon right there, that means he would have hit me. The value on the left of where my finger's pointing says he's going to do 2 damage on range. The one on the right says he does 1 in close combat. So this guy's more lethal at range. Because I rolled that hit icon on the hit dice, I'm going to have to take 2 points off my medical record, which we'll cover next. Medical record, where you record your health. In this game, you have a notepad that has 12 hit points to start with. You start up at the top. When you take 2 points of damage, you'll go down 2 ticks, 2 rows, and over 1 column. You always go over just 1 column whenever a new event occurs. But you'll go up and down based on the amount of health you gain or lose. If I take 4 hit points, I'll go down 4 ticks and come over 1, just like that. Maybe I'll get an item that'll give me some hit points and I'll go up 1. And then I get hit again and I go down 2 more. It just keeps going like that as you play the game. I really like this because it looks kind of like an EKG machine as your health is going up and down, or basically a medical record from a machine. There is a limited amount in the pad that comes in the game, but I've been playing the game for a while and I haven't gotten through it yet. Plus, whenever I play the game, I typically only get about halfway through, so sometimes you can reuse the other half if you want. But if you get all the way to 0, you're dead. And if any character dies, game over. If I was going to highlight the key points that draw me to this game, the first would be the art. It's very immersive, and it's very consistent throughout the game. All of the cards, the characters, the items, the implants, they all feel consistent in this universe or this world building that is done inside this game. It's hand-drawn, and you can tell the artist put a lot of thought and concern into bringing the world that they were viewing to life. The items are also very interesting. You can create combos with them. You can do things such as reroll misses, manipulate the face of a dice, turn it to the side that you want. Fun things like if you get a double on the dice roll, you can roll again and apply both results. Combining them with your cybernetic implants, it's important to focus on what you are good at. If you're good at might and melee combat, focus on melee combat and let your fellow crewmates do the ranged. Work as a team. You're going to have to use all of the skills of the individual crewmates and their specific items and the combinations with their implants to defeat the enemies and knock out all of those black chapter dice that are before you in order to win the reward, which are the items. Those items are critical. If you want to have a chance at getting through the entire sector and defeating the boss door, you're going to have to get items. That means that when you read some cards, like the one that's before us right now, they're not going to be monsters to fight, but there are going to be challenges, and some of those challenges are worth doing if they give you items. But everything's a risk, and at the end of the day, we're slaves to the dice. The key is to find ways to be able to manipulate the dice to increase the odds in your favor. Because this is a team game, there is no your turn, my turn. Everybody is playing at the same time, which is one of my key tenets for what makes a game great with friends. And friends you need. This is a challenging experience. I would say people who play this game for the first time have less than a 50% success rate. And I've been playing it for a while and I still have that. Each playthrough provides an immersive, story-driven experience of fighting your way back to your ship through a gritty sci-fi dungeon in an attempt to escape the dark sector. All right, let's talk about how this ranks up to other games. A score out of 5. Gameplay, replayability, components, fun factor, and overall score. We may change these criteria, but for now, this is what we're going to use. Gameplay, I give it 4 because the mechanics are unique and they're different and they're fun. It doesn't play like any other game and I really enjoy it. In terms of replayability, I'm going to give it a 3. I've been playing this game a lot, and while it does feel different every time you play through, it does start to get familiar after several times you go through the game. Components, 4. High quality stuff here. There's different dice, there's different size cards, it's all really good glossy cardstock. It'll hold up for a long time and it's fun to play with and handle. Fun factor is 4 because every time I bring new people to the table, they always walk away saying, that was a fun game, I really enjoyed that, let's play again. It's definitely worth it. So bring that to an overall score of 4 bullets in the chamber. This game is worth bringing out on your local game night. It's about anywhere from $30 to $50 on Amazon. Well worth the money. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around to the end here. Please hit the like, subscribe, and the bell if you enjoyed this content. This is the first in our series of content beyond our podcast. Speaking of which, we have a podcast we've been running for over a year now, Tabletop and Beyond. You can find on the normal feeds where we cover board games to war games, well, and beyond. Leave a comment. Let us know how we can do better. We're looking forward to making more reviews, some friends, and hopefully seeing you all at a convention or two along the way. All right, take care. We'll see you next time.